Today, we're decoding one of the most famous texts in human history, the Bhagavad Gita, pulling some absolutely fascinating insights from Vedanta vision. Now, I know most people picture the Gita as this sweeping, ancient spiritual epic, right? But if you look closer at the very first verse, a massive secret reveals itself. This isn't just ancient history. It's actually a highly practical, surprisingly modern psychological toolkit for navigating your daily stressors. Seriously, we're going to break down how a text written literally thousands of years ago is secretly decoding the exact stress you feel on a random Tuesday afternoon. Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture the original setting of the text. The massive, incredibly chaotic Mahabharata battlefield. You've got brother warring with brother. It's intense. But if you bridge that 3,000-year gap, you arrive at a war zone that probably looks surprisingly similar: your modern workplace, your daily commute, or just the relentless pinging of your inbox. The source material argues that there couldn't be a more dramatic backdrop for a spiritual discourse than a literal war. But here's the catch: it's actually a metaphor. The ancient battlefield is a direct mirror for the everyday conflicts and the underlying stress we all experience right now. Now, you might be wondering how that works. Well, the very first two words of the Gita are Dharmaksetra Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra literally translates to the land of strife and struggle. While it was a physical location in the epic, the text masterfully positions it as a psychological reality. That land of strife? Yeah, that perfectly describes our stressed-out inner state. It's the anxiety of a looming deadline, the frustration of a passive-aggressive email, just the constant mental noise. We are essentially living on Kurukshetra every single day. And this brilliantly illustrates the core paradox of our existence. According to the text, our inner personality is meant to be completely pervaded by Atman, which is infinite bliss and tranquility. That is supposed to be our default state. Yet, take a look at our reality. Instead of experiencing that deep peace, we are stressed out, agitated, and constantly disturbed. We're totally caught on the modern battlefield, completely disconnected from that inner tranquility. So the ultimate goal of the Gita is really just to steer us back to that infinite happiness. But to find our way back, we need a guide. The text actually comes to us through the narration of a character named Sanjaya, and his name is a massive clue right off the bat. It literally translates to one who is victorious over himself. This serves to remind us that the ultimate goal of this explainer isn't about winning a physical war or, dominating a boardroom. It's really about achieving victory over our own internal conflicts. So where does this internal conflict actually start? Well, the verse points us straight to King Dhrtarastra. He asks his minister Sanjaya to tell him what his sons and the sons of Pandu were doing on the battlefield. The source points out an absolutely crucial detail here. Dhritarashtra was completely unable to see his own brother's sons as his own. This intense sense of separateness, this toxic us versus them mentality, was the root cause of the entire battle. And wow, is that a powerful analogy for our own lives? Conflict and workplace stress almost always prevail when we feel disconnected, isolated, and separate from the people around us. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the text maps these ancient characters directly onto human psychology. They're actually a mirror for the internal forces battling inside you right now. King Dhrtarastra represents the blind mind, and his wife, Gandhari, represents the intellect. Every single stressful situation you encounter is essentially a negotiation between these two exact forces within you. Let's look a bit closer at the blind mind, represented by Dhritarashtra. In the story, he was literally born blind, but more importantly, he was blind to the evil his sons were committing because of his intense, unhealthy attachment to them. And this is exactly your impulsive mind at work. It functions on pure impulse. It's driven constantly by likes and dislikes. It acts on whims and fancies, completely lacking the capacity to see the bigger picture. Think about that burning urge to send a spicy, per my last email reply when you're frustrated, or just hitting reply all out of sheer annoyance. That is the blind mind creating pure chaos and personal suffering because it simply cannot see past its immediate emotional reaction. Now, contrast that chaotic, impulsive mind with the intellect, which is represented by Gandhari. The intellect is the faculty that judges, discriminates, and discerns. It's the part of you that actually knows right from wrong. It's meant to be that objective observer that guides you toward genuine progress, keeping you grounded when the blind mind starts absolutely overreacting to every little email or perceived slight. But here is the real tragedy, both in the epic and in our everyday psychology. In the story, Gandhari could see perfectly well, but she willfully chose to blindfold herself after marrying the blind king. The text uses this to explain a psychological tragedy we experience all the time, when your logical brain just gives in to impulsive emotions. Think about it. when you know you shouldn't send that angry message, but you justify it and do it anyway? That's your intellect choosing to blindfold itself. It loses all clarity due to its infatuation with the mind's immediate desires. So, the crucial point is, what happens when a blind mind and a willfully blinded intellect join forces? Well, the result is 100. Dhrtarastra and Gandhari had 100 evil sons. This perfectly symbolizes the massive negativity, the loss, and the self-destructive avenues we go down when we let impulse rule without the guidance of a sharp, discerning intellect. It literally multiplies our stress 100-fold. Let's just pause for a second here. Take a breath. If your mind is a blind, impulsive mechanism, and your intellect is a tool that can be easily blinded by infatuation, then who are you really? If you aren't your physical body, and you aren't this chaotic mind, and you aren't even this flawed intellect, who is experiencing all this? The answer actually lies in the very structure of the Gita itself. The text points out this incredibly beautiful linguistic bookend. The entire Bhagavad Gita begins with the word dharma and ends with the word mama. Put together, mama dharma translates to my essential being. This perfectly frames the true, ultimate purpose of this explainer, discovering your true essence, completely separate from the noise of the battlefield. And that true essence, you are Atman. The text emphasizes that the Atman is completely unknown to us normally, mostly because we only identify with our body, mind, and intellect. But this Atman is infinite happiness and bliss. It is the core of who you are, and it remains completely 100% untouched by the daily stressors, the annoying commutes, and the chaotic impulses of the blind mind. The ultimate goal is to introduce you to your very own self. Let's move to and see how this builds into practical application. How do we actually apply this day to day? How do we stop the blind mind from causing our downfall? Well, we have to use the intellect to manage our emotional triggers. We must keep the intellect strong and alert, because if it's weak, the mind takes over. We have to actively use discernment to hold the impulsive mind in place. We must prioritize our long-term interests over immediate whims and consciously direct our mind toward our own genuine progress. To summarize this psychological toolkit, here is a clear, actionable roadmap you can use the very next time you face a modern workplace conflict. Step 1. Recognize your impulses. Acknowledge when that blind mind is reacting with a sense of separateness or unhealthy attachment. Step 2. Empower your discrimination. Take the blindfold off your intellect and clearly judge the situation without emotional infatuation. And Step 3. Shift your focus away from the chaos and back to your true essence, the Atman, where real tranquility lives. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. Every single day, you step onto the Kurukshetra of modern life. The ancient text of the Gita warns us of the absolute chaos that follows when we operate blindly. So, the choice is entirely yours. Will you let the blind, impulsive mind rule your daily battlefield? Or will you awaken your intellect, cut through the stress, and finally step into the infinite happiness of your true self? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating psychological toolkit with us.